Hey everybody, welcome back to our Add to Your Faith studies on Synoptic Gospels. We're doing our current study, which is number 53. No one can serve both God and mammon. Now, this concept is in two different verses, one in Matthew and one in Luke. But the context for each is a little bit different, so we want to look at that. First, look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, this concept is tucked into what we've already talked about in laying up treasures in heaven, when we focused on verse 19 through 22. Now, look over at Luke, and this time it's in Luke chapter 16. Now, this is the first time we've jumped so far forward in Luke. As I said, it's a completely different context. So, Luke chapter 16, verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, as I said, this one is actually a different context than the Sermon on the Mount. This is at the end of a parable of the dishonest manager. This is the one where he made someone pay him half of what they owed so that he could make friends with everyone who owed his master money. For when he got fired, he'd have friends amongst all the people whose debt he'd forgiven. All right, it's that context. So if you look back up to verse 10, one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, the verse that we already read. Now, again, the context for both of these is different, but the wording is exactly the same. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. In the Matthew, that's in the don't lay up treasures on earth context. And in Luke, it's within that parable. Now, in both, we have this very clear statement that you can't serve God and money. You'll serve either one or the other. You can't love and be faithful to one and love and be faithful to the other, because they are enemies. God and money are not on the same side. So when we serve one, we can't serve both. Now, of course, this is a tricky and a complicated concept, but when we think that money is what we need, when money is the answer for all of our problems, then we're not going to be able to serve God and love Him completely. He cannot be the one we're completely trusting, completely devoted to, if we are trusting money to answer our problems. We either trust God or we trust money. Now, can God provide money to answer our problems? Yes, that's what He does. He promises to provide everything that we need. So it's not like money is something that doesn't exist for a believer. Clearly, we all use money to live. God is the one who gives us that money. And you might say, well, I work for my money. I have a job. I earn it. Well, who gave you that job? Well, my education. Well, who gave you the brain to be educated? We can keep going back until you finally realize that God is the one who gives us the abilities and the opportunities that we have to have the education we have, the jobs that we have, and therefore the money that we have. It's different for everyone. Everyone has a different calling and a different place that's needed for you as a Christian to have a sphere of influence. So for some it's to be poor, and for some it's to be rich, some is to be both at different times of their lives. We're supposed to have an open hand concept with money, meaning I can be happy with little or I can be happy with much. That is the point. Now, this can be challenging, obviously, because in a world of materialism where we're told that the more you have, the better off your life is, that you can't be happy without the latest phone, the latest television, the nicest car, the best education, etc., etc. Whatever things we value, there's normally a money value connected to that thing. So the difference in perspective here is to recognize that you will serve one or the other. You will either serve God or you will serve money. And the choice is, which one will we serve? Because we can't serve both. So how do we serve money? Well, as I said, one is by thinking that it is the only answer or the only hope that we have to get the things that we want, to achieve the level that we want to have in life, that we need a certain amount of money. That misconception makes us deeply bound, like a slave, to money and oftentimes to debt. To get the things that we want and not have the money, then become a slave to the people who do have the money and that we get in debt to. So either way, money can be a very complicated and enslaving thing, connected to materialism and the things that we think we need to be happy. God has promised to provide what we actually need to be happy. So will we follow him? Will he be our master? Will we let him decide what we need to live, or will we follow the world's pattern and follow after money and whatever it takes to get that money? And so that's the other thing. So we can be anxiously laying up our treasure on earth, thinking that the more money we have, the better off we are. Or, as in the Luke passage, be the unfaithful servant who, through dishonest business, laid up more money for himself so that he could be rich and respected. For him, it was both things. So we lay up treasure on earth, thinking that moth and rust is not going to corrupt, and we can be working with illegal or dishonorable or immoral ways of making money, that either side is us having money as our master. That's who we're living for. Or we can serve God. When we serve God, then we live within what he is wanting us to have, and we accept that level of existence. That if we're not rich, then we accept that that's not God's will for our life. Now, that does not mean that we can be lazy. God says, if a man does not work, neither shall he eat. There is a calling to do exactly what God has given us the ability to do, whatever that is. And with that effort and workability that God's given us, to see that God is providing for us. But again, that is not a promise that he will provide everything that we may want. It's providing everything that we need. And so within that, we have to have a balanced concept of what is controlling our motivations and our effort. Are you working and slaving dishonestly because the worth, the value of the money that you get is worth it? Or is it immoral in some way? You're doing something, or you're connected to something in your business or in your life to make money that you feel guilty about, that you know is not godly, is not good, that you're ashamed of because you want the money more than pleasing God. So be careful with those things. Find out what is enslaving your heart. Is it like a materialism driving towards, I want more and more and more? Is it fear? Like, if I don't have money, I cannot exist. God's not going to take care of me. It's all going to fail. What is your thoughts on money? And are you serving God as your master? Or are you serving money as your master? And as that verse says, you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. That's your options. We're either devoted to God and despising money, the lifestyle, the world existence of running after money, or we're going to love money and despise God. Because God puts boundaries on us. He has rules. He has things that are wrong for us to do. He tells us to give to others and to live selflessly and to not be materialistic and all this stuff that makes us have to recognize that we either accept God's way and push away the mentality of living for money, or we're going to live for money and we're going to push away God. Now, again, this is Jesus's words, not mine, so don't be mad if that steps on your toes. But in the end, we have to value life over money. The life that God has given us, the respect, the life of doing something you can be proud of, not ashamed of. Now, what about in today's world and economy, when no matter how much you work and no matter how much effort you make and whatever, there's just not enough money? I think it's a complicated thing in today's world because of how much change has happened rapidly. Where in the past, a certain amount of education and a certain job equaled a certain level of prosperity. And now that education and that job does not equal paying rent half the time. And so a lot of people around the world, most people around the world, are trapped in a very difficult situation of trying to live to a standard that was given to us by the last generation because it was real for them. A college degree and a good job equaled a good home and everything. Whereas for today's generation, those things are not true because of the economy. No matter what education you have or great job you have, that normally does not equal a salary that actually will allow you to support yourself well. So, in those things, we have to step back and say, what are my options? Is there a different job that I can do that would provide for my family better? Then do it. If it's honorable and godly and etc. Or do I need to have a different standard of living and accept the fact that in today's world, I cannot have within my budget, within my means, the things that I want to have. Now, living within a budget is nobody's dream come true. Of course, we all want to live just loose and free and throw out a credit card and buy whatever we want, but that's not okay. We have to accept that God gives us all boundaries in our life, and we have to live within those boundaries. With me recently resigning from my job to be a stay-at-home mom, we've had to learn quickly what it means to live on half a budget, because we went from 2 people working to 1 person working, and in that we have a very, very, very tight budget. And so we're trying very hard to live within that budget, but we haven't quite learned yet how much money we can spend per day. I actually have a book where I'm writing down how much per day we can spend. This is exactly how many groceries we can buy each time, how much coffee, etc. Like, it's all charted out. We had an unexpected expense this month, and we have $10 left for the rest of the month, 7 more days. Now, we have plenty of savings we can, tuck into to buy groceries. But the point is trying to live within that salary that comes in each month rather than using savings. And that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of effort and a lot of attempt to really tuck in. So what are we doing? Well, instead of going out to eat or ordering food or going out to fancy coffee shops for the next 7 days, we're going to eat the groceries that are in this house. Yes, everything. The boxed food that are randomly in the cabinets, the dried beans that haven't been eaten yet because no one, absolutely adores beans. All the rice that was stocked for the quarantine. There's plenty of food in here. Is it delicious, amazing, and exciting? Maybe not. Is it living within the budget that God has given us for this month and making choices that allow us to not waste and to live wisely? Yes. So, everyone has a different situation. Everyone has a different thing going on. We all get in difficult situations because of money and debt and all kinds of things. But I don't know where you are on that process. You may have made some really bad decisions. You have a lot of debt. You may have had to get a lot of debt because of something out of your control, like medical bills or something that was not expected, somebody else's debt that was put on you, etc. So I'm not being judgmental in this. I'm just putting out a principle that God says we are to serve Him and not money. And to do that, we have to live within the boundaries and principles that God has given us so that we can honor Him by submitting to the life that He has given us and not trying to reach outside of those boundaries by buying things that we can't afford or letting our emotions or our whatever drive us to spend too much money. Saving money, giving away money, helping others who have less, living within budgets and means so that we can tithe and save and give is honoring to the Lord. So consider those things. It may look differently in your house, how you do it, how you budget, how you honor God. Like I said, before I quit my job, we didn't have to live on a tight budget. We still were able to save and give and do all that without having to count every single penny. But at this point, we're having to really count it down to stay within a tighter boundary. Both ways are honoring to God as long as we're doing it to honor Him. We're not enslaved to our money. We're not enslaved to our materialism or to passions, to just do or get whatever we want out of our emotional perspectives, right? Letting God guide us prayerfully through the things that we buy and the way that we spend and the way that we give, so that we are truly living for Him and not living for money, or living thinking that money's going to answer our problems, because only God can answer our problems. So a lot on that one little verse, what it means, in my opinion, to live in a way that's honoring to God, and that is being careful to not be enslaved to money, because it is a master that I do not want to have. I want God as my master. I hope that that is challenging and encouraging to you today. If you have any thoughts or questions about this topic, or anything you want to add, please let me know. It always is encouraging to see that people are actually watching this and being encouraged by this. So feel free to send me a message on Facebook or on Cacao Talk, and let me know what you think about this lesson today. All right, thanks. Have a great day. Bye.